Yeah.
Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. Hanging out with a couple nerds today. I got Dan, Dillon, and Aaron Hubrich. Is that how you say
Hubrich.
it?
Yep, Hubrich. You got it.
All right, awesome. So we're gonna be talking about Masters and Minions and the Kickstarter that you guys have going on right now. In the, there's a link in the description as always, plus a bunch of other places. You had the gods and goddesses as well. The publishing company is Jetpack 7. And you have like a bunch of companies. It's like this big shell organization or something.
We're hiding something, right?
Yeah. In the art. They're hiding it in the art.
That's right.
So how are you gentlemen doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on again.
Big thumbs up.
You've been on. This is like your third or fourth time now. You're a regular.
Something like that. Yeah, I love coming on here. So, I'm excited to be back.
Awesome. We are excited to have you back. We love all the stuff that you're taking part of, and I keep stalking you on Facebook to see if I can find clues to the next Wizard product.
Yeah, you're not going to find any of that from me. Sorry, man. The NDA is draconian, and they're always watching.
I bet they got the holders everywhere.
We know nothing.
Yep, not a thing.
That's what I was saying to Aaron. We were talking a little bit before you came on. I'm like, Dan's all over the place now. Wizards, Cobalt Press, Jetpack 7.
Yeah.
Busy man.
I'm getting around a little bit. I am very busy. That is true, but it's good. It's good to have things chomping at me to keep me working.
Yeah, it's good to make money and get paid and be able to feed your kids.
And create stuff and put stuff out there for people to play with.
If your kids are anything like mine, they'll want to eat like 3 times a day and snacks.
Yep. And never at meal times. It's always at random times for mine.
Oh no, my kids will eat dinner, and next thing you know, not so much now with my daughter, but she used to be like, we'd eat dinner and then she'd be in the refrigerator like right after. I'm like, what are you doing? Looking for a snack? Like, you just ate dinner.
Yeah, that's my son. He's digging in the fridge all the time right after dinner. Doesn't matter.
So Master and Minions, we had touched on this a little bit actually, Aaron, when you were on the first time.
Yeah. We
so do you go into it?
We've been kicking around the idea. After Gods and Goddesses, we were thinking, okay, well now let's instead of coming up with something, as an homage, of the deities and demigods, we thought, well, let's do something that can be like a time-saving tool for GMs. And so I kept thinking, like, man, it's trying to remove some of the obstacles of being able to play Dungeons and Dragons. So with that, we were thinking, I was kind of visualizing this idea. Can we take some stuff that will save people a little bit of time prepping for the game? So the idea was to just create scenarios that, imagine you're sitting at the table preparing for a game, and the next thing you know, your players are ready to play, and now you don't have something for someone at 7th or 8th level. Well, this book will cover that. You can actually just drag and drop your features in, and you're ready to go. And you're kind of leveraging our preparation for you. That way you can just, boom, put it in the game and put a new wrinkle in for your players.
And for my part, those are the best kind of resources, right? The ones that give me the ideas to latch onto and work with, and that as a DM takes away some of that tedium. I love designing encounters. I love figuring out how story hooks are going to fit together, but there are a lot of little minute details that you really need to tweak and mess with, and having a lot of that done for the most part so that all I have to do is maybe sand the corners a little bit. I love it.
Or, even just like your players go off the rails and go in a direction you completely didn't expect, and you're like,
yep.
Oh, I got this book. A 5-minute break is more than enough time for you to pick out like something that's appropriate.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the idea. What we're trying to do is just it's those obstacles. It's that we're not trying to say here is the box and you must stay within it. It's actually quite the opposite. It's something that you can actually put in your game and have it. There's some, especially with the experienced players, there's some potential for metagaming. You kind of know, oh, well, here comes some kobolds. You kind of know what's coming. And so we're trying to offset some of that, but make it not where we're going to beat players. So this isn't we're going to beat players and make them sad. No, this is actually going to what we're trying to do is make it fun. This is going to be fun for everyone, including the game master.
So when Jetpack 7 was putting this thing together, did you have specific things you wanted from your writers, or did you kind of give them free reign?
Yeah, yes. We kind of wanted some structure because it seemed like there was the way Dungeons and Dragons works. There seems to be some opportunity. You have stats, you have a backlog, you have a backstory or some lore for these things in the game, but how do you kind of bridge that and make it actually work? How does it actually function in the game? This is where we want to. This is why we're leveraging and utilizing Dan's experience to be able to say, okay, here are some tips, here's some strategy tips, here's some tactical things that you can use with something that may be just normal. You're actually being able to utilize it in the game and be able to get some new ideas. Yeah, you can have a breath weapon on a dragon, but where is it going to be best? Like maybe some different, just throwing out different scenarios that might be new for a new or experienced GM. That's our hope, and so that's why we looped in Dan to help us out there.
Right. Part of this thing that's interesting to me, and one of the more challenging aspects of it, is not only just designing the master and then the minion stat blocks. That's got challenges all its own, but it's also building in some sidebars where it's like, here's how you might use these guys. Here's a sort of typical encounter, or here's one for higher level if you want to ramp the challenge up a bit, and then here's some sort of terrain features that might be available that these guys can really capitalize on with whatever their unique abilities and traits are. Or here is a great time for this encounter to strike to add an interesting twist when your party is doing X, Y, or Z.
One of the good things about minions is that, especially if you go back to kind of 4th edition, I know that a lot of people give 4th edition, they just kind of roll their eyes. Oh, but the wonderful thing about 4th edition was the usage of minions, and that's one thing we kind of wanted to pull back in because it changes the landscape. It really does. You can go up against a very high level big baddie at the end, let's say the big climax, and it's not if a party of 5 or 6 players it might end in a round or two if the strategy plays out. Now minions kind of help offset that, and that was our goal with this, to help kind of stretch out and kind of throw in some new wrinkles. It's kind of like I don't know, it just throws out some different strategy and makes it a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, this is definitely less of your giant monster pile of hit points and legendary actions. It's really more about building encounters.
Right.
That is definitely one of the things I missed from 4E. I wish they would have incorporated it into 5e. I can only imagine that the data did not support the desire for minions in 5e because 5e is so data driven.
Yeah.
Jay Hansen has a question. Are all the masters supposed to be villains, or are there good aligned monsters in the book as well? I guess I would add an addendum to that. Is it all like NPC style, or are some of the masters, straight up monsters and possibly new monsters?
It will vary, but I would say it will lean towards conflict, but it's not necessarily going to be that way. In fact, we're thinking about putting in a new wrinkle. This is an exclusive here to Nerdarchy. So one of the wrinkles we thought is being able to have a conflict resolution without even fighting, which is kind of cool. I don't know if anybody else is doing that, making suggestions on how to win without fighting. And I know that might be like, oh man, we love fighting, we love this strategy, but not every player is going to do that. So to answer the question is, there's probably going to be a third of the content in here that allows for you to actually maybe run across them and not necessarily have it just be like bad guys.
Well, because that's the big thing about this, is they're not just stat blocks with, oh, and this is an orc and she doesn't like elves and so they go fight. No, I mean, they're going to have backstories, they're going to have they're going to have desires, they're going to have goals. All of this stuff is going to be there to, one, just give you something ready-made and ready to go, but also give you hooks and different connection points to weave it into your game if you want to do it with some more prep, or just to give you something to riff off of if you're like, oh crap, my player zigged when I expected him to zag. Let me grab masters and minions, whip out some encounters here. Ooh, this is what she wants. And if they make the right insight check or they notice something that gives them that clue, then they can leverage that. And some of these are definitely more traditional monster-like. There's a troll type fellow in there who's got some twists, but he's definitely a troll. That sort of thing. But I think they don't necessarily have to be a straight up antagonist. I think there's room for uneasy alliances and maybe a deal that you made early on that you didn't necessarily understand all of the implications of, and that's going to come back to bite you later. And now you have to figure out how you want to navigate that. There's a lot of different ways you can go with this.
That's one of the things we actually talk about quite often on our channel is the idea that, to tell a good story, you need conflict, and that doesn't necessarily mean combat.
Right.
And also when you have players that the only thing they ever try to do is overcome everything with violence, the best way to fix that is to have a conflict that can't be solved that way.
Right.
So I think that's going to be a great tool for GMs and people looking to add something different to their game. Maybe they don't know how to put that together. So if you guys can, show them, that'll be pretty awesome and useful.
Absolutely.
That's the goal. Because the whole idea, you can drag and drop from the current content that Wizard of the Coast provides. We know that. What we're trying to do is just offer additional information so that it's a little bit easier to compile and create something for your game, because it's, especially when it's short notice or when your players, like you said, they change directions real quick. You need something. And we don't necessarily have 3 to 4 hours every week to put something together. Utilize our brain power, our creativity, and just kind of plop it into your game. And hopefully there will be enough between levels 1 through 20 that you can go, okay, well, they're getting ready. Here's another scenario. Well, they're 8th level, they're almost to 9th, but they didn't quite do enough. They kind of, went through everything so quick. I'm going to add one more little nugget to this so that they can actually feel like they've been challenged just to get to that 9th level spot. So that's the hope with this one, with masters and minions, I should say.
Right.
So, Aaron, do you have a favorite master in the book and a favorite minion?
Yeah, the minion. I'll start with the minions first because actually Dan developed this because it's the Veil Runners that are new, and it's so cool. I don't want to give it all away, and it's fun to think that these little creepy dudes are they're connected to this orc queen, and I can't wait. I mean, just to be able to put these guys out into a game, it's going to be fun. I hope for GMs out there.
I can throw out there that they're a little weird, and they're not from around wherever your PCs happen to be. So
right.
they're one of the things that might be a deal made early, might have unforeseen consequences later, depending on the truth behind these little creepy guys that work for this orc queen and what their truth is, what they're really here for, where they come from.
Yep. And so that's fun. I think that's going to be, Orc Queen, okay, cool. Orcs, yeah, we've been there, but the wrinkle in all this is that the Veil Runners, and I hope that everyone that plays the game enjoys that part. The master that for me personally that I love this kind of story element. We don't have a name for it yet, so we're still developing it, but it's a character. I've always imagined this idea that, especially early on, the idea would be to introduce this at 4th, 5th, maybe higher level. But how many times have your characters run into a scenario where they've just laid waste to the town? They're still learning their way. Maybe they're murder hobo types early on. They're just figuring out how to run the game properly. Well, at some point they're going to run into some characters that they may have created an enemy at some point that later on is going to have some kind of repercussions against their party later. So I thought, let's throw out some breadcrumbs and to be able to create this character early on in their career and have them come back later, maybe 8th, 9th level or higher, and then have them, because you did this early on in your gaming career, PCs, this person is created, and of course they'll let them know about it whenever that encounter is. So that will be something that we'll have to develop, but it would be fun to say, you created me and here I am again later. So that'll be fun for me to at least to help go back and forth with Dan to develop that.
That's a great story seed.
That sounds like one of those non-evil NPCs. You know,
You never know.
that maybe the players just did the wrong thing. Like we recently had a question. I don't know if it's a video that's up or going up, but it's like, you know, I don't want to overshadow the party because I travel with like 30 to 40 undead because I'm a necromancer. I'm like
just 30 or 40 smelly things.
You leave it at town, or do you come through like a parade? What are you doing?
Yeah. You can go over to the tavern over here, but you and your things stay out here. I can only see.
They don't like your kind here.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just too old, but I just cannot wrap my mind around the good necromancer.
No, well,
good necromancer, fine. Necromancer creating undead minions, two different things.
Yeah, but they always argue that they're creating undead minions, and they're just
they do. I have some strong feelings on that, but that's another chat, I think.
Can you make that master that just hunts those guys down?
You never know.
We're kind of like breaking down the Xanathar guides class, different subclasses, and one of the things we were asked to do is, well, how would you use this as an NPC or a villain? And I'm like, Grave Domain, perfect. I got one for you guys, all your good necromancers out there. This is the guy that comes, and his buddy might be some kind of paladin. So,
and they're here to stop that BS.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm old and set in my ways.
I hear you.
So Aaron Marks wants to know, can you please get this over to Smiteworks and get Rob 2E to help you convert it so we can use it on Fantasy Grounds soon? This is often something that comes up much more often than it should.
Much later.
Yeah, I mean, we were actually talking to them briefly. It was just kind of in passing with the Gods and Goddesses book, but I think this was like totally perfect for that. I mean, you can have super powered, gods and goddesses in that environment, but I think this would be very good for that.
It would be great having literally drag and drop encounters that you can just pull into your Fantasy Grounds interface and let them go.
Yeah, that's actually an excellent idea. So we'll talk. We'll do this.
It's a great idea.
If they're watching.
We should totally do it. Just everybody out there needs to keep in mind that coding things into a virtual tabletop is not trivial. And there are people who do that as their job that they get paid for. So it's not a simple process where you snap your fingers and now boom, you have your adventure in Fantasy Grounds. Just so manage expectations and understand it takes a fair amount of work and some expertise.
Yeah, no, I believe that's also why he suggested Rob, because he does a lot of that stuff over there for Fantasy Grounds. He's one of the guys. Yeah, and then Doug is really easy to talk to, in my experience.
Might be a good thought for a stretch goal.
There you go.
So there was so Kyle Ellis had a question, and now his question seemed kind of specific, but I believe this product the one you worked on before is campaign agnostic, and he was asking about specific things from your campaigns.
Yeah, these are totally meant to, if you got a homebrew campaign, boom, you can drop it in. If you're working with something from Wizard of the Coast, Cold World Press, I'm trying to put all the big names. Yeah, you can definitely drag that in there too.
I think I see the question you're talking about, asking about something unique about the setting. Yeah, this book is not for a setting. So,
yeah, the whole idea is to be able to put it into any setting. So there won't, some of the character names, NPCs will be stuff that we've created ourselves for our own game. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely usable content for any game that anyone's running, new, experienced, now, if it's, I mean, that's what we like about this kind of stuff is that, it's very useful, time saving.
So, Alfbait, are minions going to be varying levels, such as rank and file, lieutenants, captains, etc., within the master minion setup? And also, I guess, are you going back to 4th edition and bringing back that minion mechanic?
That's a good point that we do need to touch on. We do call them minions, but nothing I have designed yet has been the one hitter quitter minion style. That's not something that we had discussed previously. So no, like the Veil Runner minion that Aaron mentioned before, they're a creature with a challenge rating and hit points appropriate to that challenge rating.
That's right. There will be opportunities. I mean, obviously, your lower level minions. There might be some 1 or 2 hit point minions that you can just have your characters just boom waylays through. Of course, that'll be in there, but then it'll also be like if we have a 12th, 13th level encounter, chances of likely just being able to actually encounter a 1 or 2 hit point monster. I mean, it's possible. You could always put them in there. Just to kind of throw in a little bit of extra, a little bit of extra, hit points or actually more characters to occupy your PCs with. But yeah, it's going to vary. It's not going to just be 1 or 2 hit points. There's going to be a lot of variations, and you can kind of pick and choose from. Let's say you want to work with these minions from the 7th through 11th level encounter. You can put those in your 3rd level encounter if you want to put a challenge to your PC. It's not so specific. So definitely check that challenge rating. They will definitely be of an appropriate challenge rating, like right. Dan was mentioning.
Yeah, so not a 4E style minion at this point. Although, as far as specifically addressing the question of different ranks of minion, like there won't be multiple different challenge level versions of the same minion stat block, but we are going to talk about what are some other things that might accompany this master and their minions. And so you have, the Orc Queen, and then there might be some lower or higher challenge, other slightly more generic minions that might be part of her warband that you could encounter. And we'll have suggestions for that in there as well.
Exactly. You won't have just the Veil Runners. She might have some goblins. She might have other orcs. So those will be in kind of the mix of the minions as well. So we'll definitely have some strategies for those guys too, some of the more traditional, but there'll be new stuff in there so that not everyone's so, oh, I know what to expect. Oh, really? So throw in this, throw in here, throw some new stuff here. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Every time I hear Veil Runners, I'm like, Dan's trying to sneak out Demon. I know it.
Not that kind of Veil. I've snuck some Alcadema in here and there though. My stuff's out there.
I know that's one of your loves.
Oh yeah, big time. Yep.
So Trumate is crying out for the variant Flump minions in the book.
I think it's a good question. Are Flumps SRD, or are they intellectual property? I'm not sure if we're allowed to mess with Flumps. That's something. That's
we could always create something Flump-like.
We could sidestep the Flump. Yes.
Yeah.
The Schmumps.
Yeah. The cousins of the Flump. I have a story about that visually. This is an art story for you guys. Before, when we were developing the art for Dungeons and Dragons for 5th edition, there was no colored Flump as far as we knew. So we actually, the original Flump color
that was you guys.
We originally painted it to be mostly blue and kind of clear, so kind of an opaque. So and it Josh
like a
and
jellyfish.
Eddie, I'm sorry. Yeah,
like a
that
jellyfish.
was kind of exactly. Yeah, it was kind of like a Man of War or something like that. We were kind of inspired by that whole look. So
nice.
So we so Johnson and Hetty said, that's just too blue. So put in some browns in there too. So there's your history of the Flump coloring. Now you know.
That's awesome.
That could be $1 million question on the game show someday.
Yeah. Who was the first person to color the Flump?
There you go. We recently did a video on using Flumps as villains.
Oh man.
I saw Andy ask, "What is a Flump?" So you guys keep talking. I'm gonna just grab my monster manual and show him a Flump picture real quick because this is important context for this discussion.
Yeah, it's like psychic jellyfish.
All right, Andy. Here comes your Flump.
There we go.
There he is.
Yep,
Flying.
Used to be
flying psychic lawful good jellyfish gas bags.
Basically.
With a skunk spray attack.
Yeah.
Lawful good. I think if we do a Flump variant or something like that, we'll definitely make them so evil. They'll be like the anti-Flump.
The black hat Flump.
Well, one of the points we brought up about using the Flumps as the villains is because they're immune to divination spells and mind reading.
Psychic detection, yeah.
Like, yeah, when their eyes aren't glowing red, there's like absolutely no way to tell.
Yep.
We'll give our evil Flump, a goatee like the evil Spock.
Yeah, there you go. You can tell he's evil. He has the mustache,
right?
The facial hair. Perfect. So, what is the page count that you guys are going for?
Right now, we're going for 100 pages, and we're using that. It might blow up beyond that, depending on stretch goals. But obviously, we want to start out with 10, at least a base amount of 10, and then depending on the stretch goals, obviously, depending on how well the campaign goes, we'll go up to 20, and then we'll see how well it goes from there. But yeah, definitely 100 pages, similar size of Gods and Goddesses, so there'll be plenty of content.
Now, Aaron had also asked, are you guys using a standard format for the stat blocks?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I am, on my end at least. I can't speak to layout, but I am definitely turning my stuff in a standard format. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be able to, I mean, it will be familiar. It will have our spin on it, but it'll be familiar. It won't be like stuff all over the place where you're like, I can't use it.
Right. You look for senses, you're going to look in the exact place to look for the senses line of a 5e stat block.
That makes sense. And I guess there are people out there making stat blocks that are non-stand. I don't know why you would. I mean, it's just so much easier if you make it the way everyone's doing it.
They have to be a little different because there's this thing called trade dress, which is the way the books look, and that is copyrighted, so we can't copy that exactly. We can't use the exact same fonts. We can't use the exact same visual art look of the stat blocks, that sort of thing.
That's right.
People cheated on things like Homebrewery and those sorts of things with their Photoshop templates and all that, and that's fine as long as they're not selling them. If it's something that you want to move commercially, you can't use something that looks exactly like WotC's stuff. That is proprietary.
Right, but the format itself, is that part also?
No, the format is fine as long as it doesn't look identical in visual style. But hit points and armor class and speeds and the same setup, that's fine. I'm not a fan of wanting to break out of that format. That's no, that's not for me.
Yeah, we're trying to make a product that's easier to use now.
Yes. The whole point of this is to have high utility and be very user friendly, and we don't want to change up the way the stat block works. I remember when the stat block format changed toward the later end of 3rd edition, and it kind of went into what I now think of as the Pathfinder style of stat block. That was a nightmare trying to find what a monster could do in those adventures because I just wasn't used to it.
That's right.
I don't know. I've seen so many variations at this point from AD&D on. It's just like, but no, the way 5e is set up is really easy and user friendly.
Yes.
So, are there any masters and minions that didn't quite make the cut, or that may if it gets blown up may appear?
Not yet. We haven't. Right now, we've got a list of I think 23. So we'll hopefully be able to. I mean, I would love to use them all, but then at the same time, we're also not. We're not so closed off. If someone has, inspiration, we're going to put it in there. If not, then maybe Masters and Minions Part 2 will have, the spillover content. So, but yeah, I mean, we're open to just about anything. If we get inspired, we're going to put it in there.
That's Nathan Gower just asked if Kickstarter campaign seems to be exploding. Would you guys look at making a volume 2 later? I think you just got your answer. So yeah, totally. If we got content and there's demand for it, I can't imagine why that wouldn't happen.
I want to do 10 of these, so make it happen.
All right.
I feel like that's pretty standard. If something does really well, then you're going to want to do it again.
Yeah, I mean it's just this is kind of unlimited. So this is that's what we like about this stuff. I mean, if we can make a game master's life easier and people like it, we're going to keep doing it. Until people tell us no.
So you said right now you're going for a set of 10 essentially.
The base, we want to start out with there's going to be at least 10 in there, 10 sets. And then what we're hoping to do depending on how much it gets funded for, one of the stretch goals is once we reach certain levels, we'll start adding more and more and more. So I think we'll cap out at 20. But if there's demand, and if this thing goes crazy, then obviously we'll consider doing more. But I think we want to keep it. We want to keep the book. We don't want to have an encyclopedia or something. So. But yeah, we'll definitely have some others.
Shiz the Stabber said they need like 600 pages. Like, come on, this is not a Frog God Games book. You guys see the Blight?
Yeah.
That book is like 1,000 pages.
Right.
Or like
that's
Dark Eras from Onyx Path for Chronicles of Darkness. That book is. I had to reinforce my shelf.
Well, it's also going to be full color too. So I mean, there's. We want to make it look pretty. I think part of our, as far as one of the things we know we're going to be doing is that I think people have kind of an expectation that we're going to offer at least a beautiful book. So it's going to be full color. It's going to be, at least 100 pages. It's going to look good on the shelf. It's going to be worthy of your gaming table.
Certainly, given what Jetpack has put out before, I think a beautiful book is the least of our worries.
Can't do that.
That is happening.
Yeah, I have to concur there. Actually, early on, I think it was AJ that commented on the shelf behind you with all the GI Joes, which I know we kind of covered the first time you were on, but you guys worked on that art. So
yeah, that's all our stuff. So that was our first big break.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So all this. So Hasbro, actually, I have a quick story. I don't want to deviate too much, but Hasbro called us, the art director called us and said, "Hey, can you guys do this G.I. Joe art from the mid 80s, early 80s?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we can do that." And at this time, no one was really doing that kind of style artwork in Photoshop. So long story made short, they wanted a digital version of it because when in Cincinnati, when it was still Kenner moved up to Rhode Island, where Hasbro is now, the main facility up there. And I think they just kind of distributed all the paintings for G.I. Joe to their staff and whatnot. So they only had like a handful of G.I. Joe art. So they needed new art. They were going to redo the line for the 25th anniversary. And so this is where we got our break, doing all that G.I. Joe artwork. So from there, it just kind of spun out. And the whole time I'm going playing Dungeons and Dragons, and and they're hearing about stories at our table about working on G.I. Joe stuff. So it's kind of surreal to be able to work on all these childhood, things that we grew up on, and there it is behind my wall, and it's our stuff. And I still think that it's someone else's stuff. It's weird. So
that's so cool.
It is very cool. I remember coming home from school, school every afternoon and watching G.I. Joe. So
mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
G.I. Joe.
And now that's your G.I. Joe. Yeah, that is way cool.
It's fun. It's a fun gig.
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask the question, like, how many Masters and Minion sets do you have, like, per tier?
Okay,
how you guys broke it up, or?
So the idea, at least for now, obviously this is gonna involve playtesting, but we're going to define it levels 1 through 20, so that a game master can come in and go, okay, flip through the book and go, okay, I need something for 5th through 7th level, and that's how we're going to try to span it. So the difficulty level will be like 1 through 3, 4 through 7, 8 through 11, etc. So there'll be some variables, obviously, for stronger or weaker encounters. But the whole point is that you can kind of, as a game master, kind of feel it out during the play. Drop in some new minions, pull some minions out, maybe, fudge some numbers. At that point, then we're going to kind of turn it back over to the game master at that point. But we're hoping to define it properly enough to where they can effectively go into encounters 4 through 7, levels 4 through 7, and be confident that that's actually going to work for their players for that level. Does that answer the question? Sorry.
No, absolutely. I think you nailed it. So it's going to be more variable, so that you can get more use out of each one.
That's right.
It'll
it's
have
not
a
going to just be
baseline.
one and done.
Yeah, it'll have a base format for the various level ranges that a master minion set will fit into, but then within that there will be some wiggle room to expand.
Right.
So
That's the goal.
If you want to or can tell us, what is like the most unusual set you came up with?
Well, I'm looking at the list here. The most unusual right now, we're still developing it. So I think right now the ringleader, the image that you actually have on this video, she is a bard with her kind of crazy kooky thieving friend. So I think I don't know. I think that could be a very interesting encounter. Right now I don't have in mind what level that might end up being because we can make her super powerful. But I just imagine this scene in a town where you see these performers going through the town, being completely, pulled in by this high-powered bard. Maybe she's low. I don't know, not yet. But we're just kind of keeping it flexible right now. But I think, it could be an interesting encounter. That's it. I'm more visual. I want to see how things play out visually. So that one's the one that comes to mind right now.
So kind of like a Pied Piper type scenario,
right?
A little Pied Piper, a little Fagin from Oliver Twist.
So what advice would you guys give to someone who is creating their own masters and minions in their own games?
Go ahead, Dan. I mean, it's
sorry, you said advice?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of what we've talked about already is make sure you have a purpose for them, build desires and goals in. One of the things that can happen in role-playing games is you can get the feeling that as long as the PCs aren't doing something, the world kind of stops. And I don't care for that. I want my villains, antagonists, or dubious allies, or even just straight up allies. I want them to be doing things. I want the world to live and breathe. And so, if you decide that you don't want to go oppose the Orc Queen on her strange conquest to bring this bizarre influence that she has somehow come into and spread it across the land, you don't have to. But there will be consequences. She will take over whatever she is trying to do, or someone else will have to go and rebuff her, and then now you have to deal with them. So make sure you know what your masters and minions want and what they're willing to do to get it and what they're capable of doing. And then you can just kind of sketch that out in a little timeline somewhere on the margins of your notebook, or your adventure, whatever you're running, and then just kind of have an eye on that. And anytime you need to shake the action up, you can just tick off the next event. And, word comes in of whatever strange thing is happening. This dragon made of vines has come out of the jungle and is starting to spread these seeds around the land that are taking over everything with like living kudzu. Whatever, right? Just have an idea of, hang on, let me write that down. Just have an idea of what they're going to do, why they're going to do it, and what they're willing to go through to make it happen. And that's setting up conflict and interaction right there. Maybe your players decide, hey, that's a great idea, let's help.
Yeah. It's also important to carve out enough time to prepare. It's partly advice, being able to give yourself enough time to prepare for your games, no matter where your players, in the context of running a game, being able to set enough aside that your players are going to do stuff that you might not expect. So have just basic notes ready to go in case your players kind of think ahead of time. Okay, this is typically what my players might do, but just in case, always have kind of a plan B or even a plan C. And that's what we're hoping to offer in this book, in that you can do this yourself, but we're kind of taking that time sink away to have to develop that. We're going to develop that for you. So but if you're going to do this yourself, make sure and give yourself enough time, give yourself enough extra stuff to do during the game, so that no matter where your players go, you at least have something, make it seem seamless, or just come off with stuff off the top of your head. It's a little more difficult, but it's easier if you have a couple of notes jotted down already. So
that's a great point. As a DM, I always recommend having at least one encounter appropriate for your party's current level, just kind of in your back pocket, ready to go just sketch prepped, right? Just so you have an idea of something you could throw in if you're like, oh crap, we're running short, I need to fill some time, or things have gotten stale, we need to shake up the action a little bit, let's have the assassin strike, whatever. Just have something that you can throw in just in case you need it.
Yeah, I mean, in my own games, one of the things that happened recently is a good example of what you talked about, and that was like sessions ago. They freed this enslaved village, and it was the way that the bad guy was motivating the villagers was he took all the children. So when they were breaking out the children, monsters came and tried to target one of the kids, and it seemed totally random and had nothing to do with everything else that was going on. And they're like, well, that's weird. And then they kind of like stuck in the back of their head. They freed the village, they left, and then they're like, there was something that we should have checked out when we were at that village, and we should look in on that kid too. So it's been weeks. They go back to the village, and the whole village is slaughtered, and the one kid is missing.
No.
Right.
Yeah, like the world, like you said, the world doesn't stand still. Things keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
So Nathan has a question. Does the supplement have a good range for master minions based on playstyle, magic or melee heavy parties, that kind of stuff?
I think over the course of your levels 1 through 20 that we'll have in it, there will be some will be battle heavy, some will be magic oriented, some will be I think the whole idea is that we'll have opportunities for thieves, we'll have opportunities for or they're rogues, I'm sorry, wizards, some more that you better have a healer. I mean, I think this is these are we're when in the context of play testing, I think we're going to find out, oh my gosh, this is pretty brutal. They better have a healer. So maybe that can be a tip that we're writing in for this encounter. Oh boy, they're going to have some. There's a lot of arrows coming at this, so if they don't have a wizard firing off magic missile during this, they're just going to get pincushion. I mean, so it's going to be. I think we can offer that inside the book and say, by the way, if this could be a very big challenge if you don't have X, or this could be, I don't know. I think that's the whole idea with this book is that, one of the encounters might be easy for one of your particular players, but it might be a challenge for others. So there'll be a lot of variation to answer your question. So I start thinking visually again and I get distracted. So.
Yeah, definitely. Now, variation in playstyle is absolutely something that I, as a designer, always want to keep in mind. And I try not to, I'm not just taking a monster manual stat block and shuffling some words around, right? I'm trying to create a new experience. That's Aaron was very clear about that. These are new creatures, new things to play with. So we're definitely keeping an eye on different play styles. Like one of the ones that I have mostly complete, Aaron's seen the draft of this one, and I'm working on some revisions right now, actually, is mobility. These things are freaking mobile. And so if you have a hard time dealing with that, like if you have a low movement party, these guys are going to be rough. But if you have a highly mobile party, with some people with Misty Step or some means to control the battlefield to try and constrain your opponent's mobility, then you might find this challenge. You might find this encounter a little less challenging because your strengths play into it. So it's going to depend highly. Yeah.
I had some fun with Quicklings last night.
Oh, nice.
They're such a weak monster, but they can be so annoying.
Yes, they can.
120 foot movement is no joke.
Not even a little bit.
So, TrueMate had a question. Any new magic items you really enjoy creating? Is there going to be magic?
There will be new magic items, and in fact, we've already got one. I don't know if we should reveal that, Dan.
I mean, I can say that I have enjoyed creating some of these new magic items. I think we can say that the magic items aren't just going to be like in a chapter, like here you go, throw these in for your players. They are definitely bound in to the characters that the creatures that we're presenting. So they're very much part of these encounters, and so they're going to be tied into it. And again, there might be complications, there might be unforeseen consequences depending on where these items come from and what they're actually intended to do versus how you think you use them.
And you also might, once you defeat a master, let's say throw out a scenario that in their treasure hoard, let's say, if you find something, it's going to either be there might be more to it than just finding treasure. So
Right.
hopefully it'll be more interesting.
Yes, I will say that there's one new magic item that I have pretty solidly in hand, pending playtest and all that good stuff. But yeah, I very much enjoyed designing one of the Orc Queen's little toys.
So yes, to answer the question.
Ever since Curse of Strahd, I've been a huge fan of that style of NPC. Do you guys take any of that forward with you?
You mean Strahd himself?
No, not Strahd, just the NPCs in that book in general.
Oh, absolutely. Every official WotC book that comes out, I pour through it. I look at what's changing, because every now and then things change. Formats change up. They do something new they haven't done before. And in fact, Curse of Strahd's a great example, because that's where we first saw how do they handle giving these guys equipment or magic treasure. And so I've definitely taken that particular page from their book and how to approach that and handle it. And and trying to keep in mind 5th edition is relatively light on magic items compared to older editions, and trying to keep that balance. But no, yeah, so I definitely look at what they're doing in their published material, and that's my guidepost, right? I'm not necessarily going to slavishly emulate it all, but it absolutely influences, yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing that I really liked and I took away from moving forward with that was the way they made NPCs more like monsters and less like character classes.
Yes.
And that's what I really enjoyed. That you're like, oh, once you break that dichotomy, you can give them these cool, flavorful abilities that you just can't get from just slapping a character class on.
And I very much advise that. I've done it both ways, both for my home game material and for published products. I've built an NPC as if it were a PC, and then fit it into the monster manual stat block format and all of that. But then figuring out the challenge rating becomes a chore, because how does this class feature factor in? It's not clear. I very much recommend building your NPCs like monsters, and then just pulling the individual components or features you want and just giving it to them. And you don't have to, like if you're making a monk character, look at what they did in Volo's Guide to Monsters in the NPC codex, in the NPC appendix there. I mean, you don't have to give your monk a giant key pool that you then have to keep track of. You can, if that's your thing, that's fine. It's just as easy to say they can do this twice per short rest and be done with it, right? Or just like this monk isn't going to live through this encounter. He can just use his stunning fist as much as he wants. Go nuts. And then when you kill him, he's done.
Well, that's one of the things I've always said too about like even like game design. Like on the GM side, you can be a little more willy-nilly. It's going to come in your game, it's going to leave your game. But on the player side, like once that's been added to the game, that could be there for years. So it requires a lot more thought and work.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yep.
So did you find there was any particular challenges to designing this product?
Go ahead, Dan. I don't know. For us, it's just making sure that the biggest challenge is just keeping in mind, how are we going to really help someone solve these barriers? How are we going to? So in and of itself isn't necessarily a challenge, but you do have to think ahead. Is this going to be beneficial to a game master who actually wants to use this content? So that's the overall challenge that we have when designing, and I think that goes for just about any book. But for this one in particular, the masters, that's new information. The minions, how to really bring in minions, be able to have some different strategy elements in it. I think that's kind of missing from a lot of games. Like it's so easy to kind of beat a big monster now. Theoretically, you throw in minions and it suddenly changes the scope. The strategy changes a little bit. That's the kind of the cool challenge and it's fun to think about.
Action economy is key. Yes. So from my perspective, one of the biggest challenges I'm having right now is the way encounter design in 5th edition works with the varying breakdowns of difficulty of your easy, medium, hard, deadly encounters. That's a lot of different layers, right? So if I'm trying to create a series of encounters using the Orc Queen and her minions, am I trying to create this for a 4-level range? And am I trying to create possible encounters for what is it? All 4 different difficulty tiers? I mean, that's a lot. And that's a lot of space on a page, and that's a lot of just kind of not immediately interesting information. That's stuff that's going to make people's eyes glaze over pretty quickly, just seeing this big list of, for a 4th level easy challenge, these monsters. For a 4th level medium challenge, these monsters. So finding a way to present that information usably is a challenge for me right now. And I'm working through a couple of different approaches and trying to refine what's going to work best.
How many sections are you working on, Dan?
How many sections? Right now, I think I have just a handful that we've talked about. And then I believe more might be coming after that. That'll be up to Aaron, how he wants to approach this.
So what we'll do, we'll start with the first 10, like I was saying before, and then we'll kind of go from there. We're kind of keeping it loose right now, mainly because of the campaign. So once the campaign is complete, then we'll know exactly what we have. And then from there, then we get to work. So that's what we have, that development time between January and the real solid, let's get down to the nitty gritty, January through April. And then we should have, and at the same time, I'll be putting and compiling all the information as it gets completed. We should have a beta version ready to go sometime in April, May, June, somewhere around there.
Nice.
So, we know you've got Dan on the project. We know Matt Colville is going to be writing the foreword. Is there anyone else you want to mention that's also working on the project, or you guys, still working on that part?
Yeah, we've actually got Jim Pinto also. He's an industry vet. He's in the Guinness Book of World Record, believe it or not, for the world's largest dungeon. I don't know if you guys remember that one, back 3.5 days. So, but yeah, it's the world's biggest dungeon, or world's largest dungeon. So, and Jim Pinto is actually most known for writing for Legends of the Five Rings, the card game back when that was extremely popular. So,
I was in it,
and
deep.
And we also have the Conceptopolis people. I don't know if you know those guys very well, but we've got them doing the art.
Figure that might be the case. Which, and you guys do a great job over there. There's a lot of awesome art.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, final thoughts?
Go get yourself some Masters and Minions. It's on Kickstarter right now.
Yeah, go take a look. Spend a few minutes, check out the page and the campaign, and we're both available on social medias and the like. And if you have any questions,
definitely give us a shout.
Yep.
Yeah, I already saw in the chat. It looks like some people are trying to dissect and discern things from the images you have posted there, and they're like, I just can't read this part.
Yeah.
I don't know why I made it so small, but I'm sorry. I'm a big tease. I just have to. I can't just give it all away. You gotta
just give the book away. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, you gotta make them work for it anyway. Get out your magnifying glass and roll some dice for your investigate. See how that goes. All right, guys. I want to thank you for hanging out with me today. I want to thank everyone in the chat, and I'm sorry I totally forgot to do the roll call. The hour just flew by.
Man, it really did. Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. Let's break some rules, man.
Just do some 3 hours.
Yeah, 3 hour extemporaneous.
From here, I have to go and do some video planning. I think is the next meeting.
There you go.
I never imagined that when I went full time for this, that my life would be full of so many meetings. I was just gonna roll funny shaped dice and collect paychecks, but apparently
you got to wrangle people, man. You're the boss now.
So, with that, guys, until next time, stay nerdy.
Thanks.